All right, I have waited pretty long to post this review to kind of get my thoughts in order of this show, what I did like, what I didn't, and just get that all together so I wasn't just coming in just yelling and mad. I wanted to really articulate what I was feeling, and honestly, now I think 2 weeks later, what my response was. So, with that all said, welcome to my review of the Book of Boba Fett. Spoilers, Season 1. Check it out. The Book of Boba Fett is the second live action series made by Disney. It follows the bounty hunter Boba Fett as he tries to rule Tatooine. And let's just get into this. Going into the series, I was kind of scared. I'm like, Boba Fett is a character that I liked, just kind of based on the look. And I thought his return in Mandalorian, directed also by Robert Rodriguez, who's now executive producer and director for 3 of the episodes in Book of Boba Fett, 3 out of the 7, I should say. He brought back the character along with Filoni and Favreau in Season 2, Episode 6 of The Mandalorian. But still, going into this, I had a little bit of hesitation. I'm like, okay, how are they going to make this character interesting and break new ground into him? And leaving the show, I still had that same question. Book of Boba Fett was not a really good show, and it was so unnecessary. Why did this show need to be made? Right from the get-go, there's stuff where it's like Boba Fett's climbing out of the Sarlacc pit, or Boba Fett is getting his armor back in one scene, or Boba Fett is getting his ship and he's meeting Fennec and he's going and he has this relationship with the Sandcrawlers who teach him how to be a better leader, and he's all this stuff, and there's flashbacks to Coruscant and to Camino, I think more specifically, all this stuff. And the whole time when I'm watching it, I'm like, okay, but why does that matter? Like, it's kind of cool to see it in some sequences. Like, I thought the scene of him in the Sarlacc pit was actually pretty cool in the season opener. But then it's like, okay, but what now? And then Season 1 basically focuses all in the past. They're starting to show the conflict brewing, or at least some of the characters who will be in it. Episode 2 is basically completely in the past. Episode 3 brings it back to the present with these new characters that you're just like, why do I care about them? Who are they? He has a Rancor. They're clearly setting up the fact that Boba Fett wants to ride a Rancor. Episode 4 is again all in the past, where it's the meeting of Fennec and Boba Fett, which is like, didn't I see that in Mandalorian already? Why do I need this be refreshed? And why is he taking his Slave One into the Sarlacc pit? And then this is where the show becomes really weird. Episode 5 is brilliant and has absolutely nothing to do with Boba Fett. It's a completely focused on the Mandalorian from the show, The Mandalorian, and it follows this adventure of him like getting his new ship, being kicked out of what remains of the Mandalorian Kree. All of this, and I'm like, this is really cool. And then Episode 6 delivers even more. So I've already said it, spoilers. Luke Skywalker, Grogu, Cad Bane, Ahsoka, they're all in this episode, and it's really cool to see them, and it's really exciting, and there's a really interesting plot point. Now, did I like the CGI or deepfake Luke? Not particularly, but was it really cool to still have a story focused around Luke, Grogu, Mando, Ahsoka, all those? Oh my god, yes. It was really cool and really satisfying as a Star Wars fan to see Luke training Grogu. I can't explain how happy I was to see that and how excited I was. Then when Cad Bane comes out in that episode, and it's just so brilliantly directed. Episode 5, done by Dallas Howard, she kills it. This is one of the most beautiful looking Star Wars stories you've ever seen. The references to the prequel of like Mando going through the canyon that Anakin Skywalker took the pod racer through. That's a great homage. There's this scene where it's just he jumps into hyperspace and it's just this straight out dart. That's really awesome. The fights he gets to have, seeing the Darksaber. Jesus, he even kill people with the Darksaber. Seeing this whole thing with the Darksaber being heavy, this history of it, all of that. That's really awesome. Episode 6, again, getting to see Luke Skywalker. Getting to see Luke Skywalker talk with Ahsoka. That was awesome. That's what I really wanted as a fan of Star Wars, and that's what Season 2 delivered so well of Mandalorian. And I get it. Could this have just been a little shoehorned in where it's just like, okay, well, you're just bringing all these characters together and you're not breaking new ground? I get it. I totally get that complaint. When people tell me about that with Star Wars, I totally understand that. With that all said, Luke Skywalker is one of my favorite characters ever explored and just ever seen on film. It was really awesome getting to see Luke Skywalker talk with Ahsoka, who is the Padawan of Anakin Skywalker. Like, talk to Luke Skywalker and seeing them train Grogu. It's really interesting to start seeing those kind of generations coming together in a way that doesn't feel unsatisfactory and just feels like, oh, we're putting this in because this doesn't... because fans want to see it, but it doesn't advance the story. They're telling a really interesting story here. It seems like Filoni, Favreau, and Rodriguez had a really cool idea for this stuff with The Mandalorian, all of this, and then just like the introduction of Cad Bane facing off with Timothy Olyphant's character, where it's just like, oh, that's Cad Bane. That's the guy who's just like raided the Jedi Temple and is now here ready to go. And he just whips out his gun, shoots Timothy Olyphant's character, leaving him and the deputy like for dead. And you're just like, oh my god, this is all accumulating. And then there's this scene where Mando brings a gift to Grogu, and Grogu has to make this choice between the lightsaber or the gift that Mando had, which is this armor. He's like left with those choices, and it seems so clear what's going on. And it's all really great Star Wars stuff. Now pause. None of it has anything to do with Boba Fett. Between episode 5 and episode 6 of the Book of Boba Fett. The Book of Boba Fett. Boba Fett is on screen for a minute. Why the hell do I care about this character who's now sidetracked in his own show? I get the idea where it's like, okay, sometimes stories focus on different characters. Not like this. This is completely like... Boba Fett is not in this show. This show is not about Boba Fett. This is Mandalorian Season 3, really is what it is. And I'm like into it because I liked Mandalorian. That's what I wanted to see. And I found Book of Boba Fett so uninteresting up to episode 5. And I'm like, I don't even care if 5 and 6 have nothing to do with Boba Fett. I don't need it to have anything to do with the Book of Boba Fett because these episodes are great. And I love the Mandalorian and I love these characters. And they've already established this history and lore and just everything with these characters. So it just gets me really excited. And then this whole time, they're kind of teasing this thing with Fennec Stan, with Boba Fett, and with this new Wookiee, who the Wookiee actually looks really great. Just full credit to him. Black Santa, I believe is his name. I'm blanking on the name. I'm probably messed it up. But they all look really cool. And it's teasing this war that's about to happen on Tatooine, where the Syndicate, which is the Syndicate from Solo, a Star Wars story, they're coming on. Cad Bane seems to be a representative of the Syndicate. So it's going to be this full-out war on Tatooine. And then episode 7 jumps in. You have all these expectations, and I get expectations shouldn't be, if it doesn't happen, you should be dissatisfied. I am not saying that if something doesn't happen that feels like they were setting up doesn't happen in the show, that doesn't make the show bad. What makes the show bad is bringing all these things and then having just a piss poor finale that doesn't know what it wants to do. Why was Mandalorian, Grogu, and all these characters in this show? Honestly, take them out of this show. They have nothing to do. So they're kind of there to keep what feels like fans invested, because Mando and Grogu don't do enough in the finale where it's like, oh, this was all leading to something. Luke Skywalker's not there, and none of the Jedi Order or anything. Not the Jedi Order, but I mean Luke and Ahsoka aren't there, so they're just there again to be with Mando and Grogu, who are characters that are not needed in this show. And then you're focusing on these characters where it's like, okay, I don't care about this biker gang, and I've heard the criticism people have had towards the way the bikes look. I don't actually mind how the bikes look, but it's just like, there's nothing there. The action in those episodes, and I've heard people criticize Rodriguez and kind of put the full blame of this show on him. That's completely unfair. This is Favreau and Filoni's show as well, so there is blame to be shared. What I will say about Rodriguez in these episodes is these episodes with him did just kind of feel cheap and kind of disconnected to the rest of how Star Wars looked. I've seen the shot of him, that one bounty hunter, just kind of spinning around in a circle, kind of reminiscent to what Rodriguez does as a director, and I believe it's From Dusk Till Dawn. I don't actually mind that shot, but I think it's the one that people are encompassing of like, this guy doesn't understand Star Wars. That's not the issue with me. That's not what I'm saying. This guy directed episode 6 of the Mandalorian season 2, which is The Sin, which is where Boba Fett returns, which is one of my favorite episodes, and it looks great, and the action is perfectly there. It's just that, like, my issue was there's these characters doing things like that guy who does the spin in that move, and I'm just like, I have no attachment to him. I don't have an attachment to any of the biker gang. I don't have an attachment to this Twi'leks in it. I don't care about really anyone that isn't named Boba Fett, Mando, Grogu, and Fennec Stan. Outside of them, they're the only ones I care. Everyone else, when they're going through these like side missions that they're doing in this final fight, I'm like, I don't really care if you live or die, because I don't know who you are. Like, honestly, like, there's points where you're like, these people are locked in danger, and it's like, okay, but aren't they supposed to be the expendable ones? Isn't that what the show's kind of established? Because why else are they there? They're not. They actually all live. Like, everyone comes out of this really big battle just completely unscarred and fine. And it's just like, when you're watching, I'm just like, okay, what's the point of this all? And then, don't even get me started with the Rancor and Boba Fett riding the Rancor. I thought that was a stupid idea when I heard it, and it looked even stupider in person watching that episode. I was just like, oh my god, this is ridiculous. One, why is he not threatening people with the Rancor from the beginning? That's what I'd be doing if I was like knowing I'd be going to war with the Pike Syndicate. I'd be saying, I have a I have a Rancor that's about to just come in and rain down terror on you idiots. Like, the fact that was kind of secret, and that was like the last plan resort, like where Boba Fett's like, oh, I must do this. Like, go out there, and it's just like, what, how? Why wasn't that plan A? Like, how is that not even discussed in the meetings when you and Fennec and Mando are all planning stuff? It's just like, Boba Fett doesn't just take a second and just be like, I gotta have a Rancor. Do you think that could come in handy? No, they're waiting until everyone's tied in a corner and it just looks like this place is going to get massacred. All this. So it's so dumb, and it actually just looks dumb. Boba Fett riding a Rancor just looks stupid. It just kind of felt like one of those moments where it's like, people are gonna like Boba Fett riding a Rancor. Like, it felt like so fanfiction-y in that moment. And when I saw it, it was one of those ones where I just had the response of, I rolled my eyes, and I'm like, who thought that was what we wanted? Like, who greenlit this story just for that beat? Like, right there, it's just like, who thought that was the idea that was going to really engross its Star Wars fans? And I'm sure there were some people who thought it would look cool and what that. I'm not going to disagree with you. That's your opinion. But just when I saw that scene, that was just like, I knew it was coming. It looked dumb. It sounded dumb. And when I saw it, it was dumb. Disattach all of that. If the episode had something better to offer towards the end, I could have really liked this episode because it wasn't so offensively bad. Where it becomes offensively bad is what they do with Cad Bane in this show. Cad Bane is one of the coolest characters introduced into Star Wars. And they introduce him in episode 6 of 7 in the Book of Boba Fett. Instead of, introducing him in the first few episodes that, again, have nothing to do with the overall story of Boba Fett. It's just all this past. Maybe introduce Cad Bane in there. That way there's this whole kind of season arc with this character and you know more of him. And it intrigues audience to go back and watch Clone Wars. If you have never seen Clone Wars and watch this, why the hell would you want to know who Cad Bane is? It's not like when Ahsoka did it, where it's like, oh, who's Ahsoka in Mandalorian? Like, what is her thing? She's a Jedi? She's Anakin Skywalker's apprentice? Like, what? That's really intriguing. Same with like when Boba Fett came back in season 2 of Mandalorian. It's like, who is this guy? Like, he's a Mandalorian. He was in the Clone Wars. He like fought with Vader and all this. Like, what is this guy? It's like, oh, it's this guy who just kills Timothy Olyphant and Deputy, and then goes into battle, doesn't really do much, kind of insults Boba Fett, and then just gets killed really easily by this move with a spear that Boba Fett learned from the Sandcrawler, which I guess that's what's supposed to justify the existence of episodes 1 through 3. It's like, well, look, this is what Boba Fett did. Who the hell cares? That's what Boba Fett did there. Doesn't even make sense. So when he kills Cad Bane, I'm just like, oh my God, you just took all this character, and it was supposed to be, for Star Wars fans, I guess it like worked a little bit better because I've had all this history with them. I was thinking as someone completely disattached from Star Wars. If I watched that scene, I would be like, who is that? Why should I care? And why was this such a build up to really nothing in the show? And that's what I found about this show. This show was just nothing. Kind of repeated, and it had no purpose for existence. Even if there's a few cool sequences, and Tamar Morrison is a really good actor, along with Fennec Stan's an interesting enough character, like all this stuff, like despite that all kind of being good, and it's like, okay, like I do like just seeing Boba Fett on screen. Ultimately, I left the show with the same question I had going in. Why do I care? Why does it matter? And leaving it, I'm just like, none of my questions were answered, and it gave me nothing, and it provided nothing, and it did nothing to advance the Star Wars story. This could have been a comic book, and it would have been completely fine. Those episodes of 5 and 6 with Mando and Grogu, they felt like the anomaly. That's what they were. They had nothing to do with the story, and with that all said, it just felt like they pulled it straight from season 3 of Mando. They're like, oh, this was how the story was going to start. And not only that, there was another issue I had with this, and that's kind of where I'll wrap my point up. This whole episode, the whole season finale of Mandalorian season 2 has the essentially Grogu going off with Luke Skywalker. And it's a really emotional, heartfelt beat, which is now ruined due to the Book of Boba Fett, because it's now just going to be about one episode of being with Mandalorian until he gets to see Grogu again. We're actually only left with one episode between Mando seeing Grogu, which is episode 5 in the Book of Boba Fett. So it's like, you have this really emotional beat, and now it's just gone. Why? Like, that was such a great emotional beat, and now you've just like said, it doesn't really matter. Grogu and Mando are back together. I love seeing them reunite. The scene where Grogu jumps into Mando's arm, it's heartwarming. It's so cute. I love that scene. But it's just like, I wish we had saved that for later, like through Mandalorian season 3. Like maybe that first episode where Mando's getting his ship, that's the start of season 3, and then that end is maybe that reunite thing. This one is just like, it crams it all in, and there's no ideas, and the show's really bad, and I did not like the Book of Boba Fett, and it preactively made some of the Star Wars content from before worse, and then it just degraded characters where it's like, Clone Wars, you could have had this really interesting thing to get audiences back watching it with Cad Bane and see his episodes, and ultimately, if you're a new fan, have no clue who Cad Bane is, you have no reason to go back to watch. Trust me, if you saw him in this show and you're like, I don't know anything and why should I care? Go watch Clone Wars, because he's so cool and so well done. Please just watch it, because he's excellent in it, and Cad Bane's one of the best characters come out. You wouldn't know that watching this show. Book of Boba Fett's a huge disappointment, and it was kind of a disaster for me. I really hope this is not the trend with Star Wars TV shows, because this was a bad one that just had nothing to give to its audience and just didn't have a story to tell. That's my review of the Book of Boba Fett. Thanks for listening. Take care. My name is Ben. Bye-bye.